All right, there we go. Okay, it's going to live. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with my brother Joshua. My mom Sharon on the other side of the room here. Sister Marissa's with us, Brother Dennis, and Sister Sally. We are the Wakened by Yahuwah Fellowship in Yahuwah Almighty, Yahushua Messiah. Today, we are continuing our Torah portions. We're going to be starting off at Leviticus 12 to 13. So I'm going to be. There we go. Okay, it's going to a lot. Yeah, right. So here we go. All right. Let's go to my e-sword here to make things easier. Go to parallel view. And I should be able to do a three-way parallel from what I remember. Yeah. Let's see here. SPE. And I'll use Alexandria Bible for the Septuagint, and then I'll use Restore Name King James for the Masoretic. And we're going to go to Leviticus 12. There we go. There we go, guys. Hopefully you can see that well. Just let me know. I can always increase the font. There should be a zooming in here too, but I guess you got to go into the settings for that. Anyway. All right, here we go. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yasharal, and you shall say to them, Whatsoever a woman shall conceived and born a male child shall be unclean 7 days. She shall be unclean according to the days of separation for her monthly courses. And on the 8th day she shall circumcise the flesh of his foreskin. And for 33 days she shall continue in her unclean blood. She shall touch nothing set apart, and shall not enter the set apart place until the day of her purification be fulfilled. Okay. But if she should have born a female child, then she shall be unclean twice 7 days, meaning for the double amount of time, according to the time of her monthly courses, and for 66 days shall she remain in her unclean blood. We're going to lose some feminists here. I mean, this chapter is going to lose some women here. And when the days of her purification shall have been fulfilled, for a son or a daughter, she shall bring a lamb of a year old without blemish for a whole burnt offering, and a young pigeon or turtle dove offering to the door of the tabernacle witness to the priest. And he shall present it before Yahuwah, and the priest shall make atonement for her, and shall purge her from the fountain of her blood. This is the law of her who bears a male or a female. And if she cannot afford a lamb, then shall she take 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one for a whole burnt offering and one for a sin offering. And the priest shall make atonement for her, and she shall be purified. Okay, and that's the end of chapter 12. Very short chapter. Basically, it's about the 8th day for the circumcision of the boy, and also the days of purification for a woman's uncleanness of her period, and being unclean from childbearing. Obviously, it says they're double for a daughter, and half of that for a son for the length of her uncleanness. So that's just a little summary of what we just read here. So we're going to continue on. It did start talking about the sacrifice too, that they had to give for after they bore a child, they would have to give a offering to Yahuwah. So I think that's going to continue in this next chapter. All right, Leviticus 13. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, If any man should have the skin, come on, derail. And if any man should have in the skin of his flesh a bright, clear spot, and there should be in the skin of his flesh a plague of leprosy, he shall be brought to Aaron the priest, or to one of his sons, the priests. And the priest shall view the spot in the skin of his flesh, and if the hair in the spot be changed to white, and the appearance of the spot be below the skin, meaning skin deep, like not just on the surface, below the skin of the flesh, it is the plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look upon it and pronounce him unclean. But if the spot be clear and the white of the skin of his flesh, yet the appearance of it be not deep below the skin, and its hair have not changed itself for white hair, but it is dark, then the priest shall separate him that has the spot 7 days. And the priest shall look on the spot the 7th day, and behold, if the spot remains before him, if the spot has not spread in the skin, then the priest shall separate him the second time 7 days. And the priest shall look upon him the second time on the 7th day, and behold, if the spot be dark and the spot have not spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is a mere mark, and the man shall wash his garments and be clean. But if the bright spot should have changed and spread in the skin after the priest has seen him for the purpose of purifying him, then shall he appear the second time to the priest, and the priest shall look upon him, and behold, if the mark have spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprosy. Okay. And if a man has a plague of leprosy, then he shall come to the priest. And the priest shall look, and behold, it is a white spot in the skin, and it has changed the hair to the white, and there be some of the sound part of the quick flesh in the sore. It is a leprosy waxing old in the skin of the flesh. And the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall separate him because he is unclean. And if the leprosy should have come out verily evident in the skin, and the leprosy should cover all the skin of the patient from the head to the feet, wheresoever the priest shall look, then the priest shall look, and behold, the leprosy has covered all the skin of the flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him clean of the plague, because it has changed all white. It is clean. But on whatsoever the day the quick flesh shall appear on him, he shall be pronounced unclean. And the priest shall look upon the sound flesh, and the sound flesh shall prove him to be unclean. It is unclean, it is a leprosy. But if the sound flesh be restored and changed to white, then shall he come to the priest, and the priest shall see him, and behold, if the plague is turned white, then the priest shall pronounce the patient clean. He is clean. Okay. Verse 18, and if the flesh should have become an ulcer in his skin and should be healed, and there should be in the place of the ulcer a white sore, one looking white and bright, or fiery, and it shall be seen by the priest, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the appearance be beneath the skin, and its hair has changed to white, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean, because it is a leprosy. It has broken out in the ulcer. But if the priest look, and behold, there is no white hair on it, and it be not below the skin of the flesh, and it be dark colored, then the priest shall separate him 7 days. But if it manifestly spread over the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy. It has broken out in the ulcer. But if the bright spot should remain in its place and not spread, it is the scar of the ulcer, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. And if the flesh be in his skin in a state of fiery inflammation, and there should be in his skin the part which is made whole of the inflammation, bright, clear, and white, suffused with red or very white, then the priest shall look upon him, and behold, if the hair being white is changed to a bright color, and its appearance is lower than the skin, it is a leprosy. It has broken out in inflammation, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy. Okay. But if the priest should look, and behold, there is not in the bright spot and white hair, and it should not be lower than the skin, it should be dark, then the priest shall separate him 7 days. Okay. And the priest shall look upon him on the 7th day, and if the spot be much spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy. It has broken out in the ulcer. But if the bright spot remains stationary and be not spread in the skin, but the sore should be dark, it is a scar of inflammation. The priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is the mark of inflammation. And if a man or a woman has in them a plague of leprosy in the head or the beard, then the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the appearance of it be beneath the skin, and in it there be thin yellowish hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a scurf. It is a leprosy of the head, or of a leprosy of the beard. Okay. And if the priest should see the plague of the scurf, and behold, the appearance of it be not beneath the skin, and there is no yellowish hair in it, then the priest shall set him apart that has the plague of the scurf 7 days. And the priest shall look at the plague on the 7th day, and behold, if the scurf be not spread, and there be no yellowish hair on it, and the appearance of the scurf is not hollow under the skin, then the skin shall be shaven, but the scurf shall not be shaven. And the priest shall set aside the person having the scurf 2nd time for 7 days. And the priest shall see the scurf on the 7th day, and behold, if the scurf is not spread in the skin after the man's being shaved, after the man being shaved, and the appearance of the scurf is not hollow beneath the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean, and he shall wash his garments and be clean. But if the scurf be indeed spread in the skin after he has been purified, then the priest shall look, and behold, if the scurf be spread in the skin, the priest shall not examine concerning the yellow hair, for he is unclean. But if the scurf remain before him in its place, and the dark hair should have risen in it, the scurf is healed, he is clean, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. And if a man or a woman should have in the skin of their flesh spots of a bright whiteness, then the priest shall look, and behold, there being bright spots of a bright whiteness in the skin of their flesh, it is a tetter. It bursts forth in the skin of his flesh. He is clean. And if anyone's head should lose the hair, he is only bald. He is clean. And if his head should lose the hair in front, he is forehead bald. He is clean. And if there should be in the baldness of his head or his baldness of forehead a white or fiery plague, it is leprosy in his baldness of head or baldness of forehead. And the priest shall look upon him, and behold, if the appearance of the plague be white or inflamed in his baldness of head or baldness in front, as the appearance of leprosy in the skin of his flesh, he is a leprous man. This priest shall surely pronounce him unclean. His plague is in his head. And the leper in whom the plague is, let his garments be ungirt and his head uncovered, and let him have a covering put upon his mouth, and he shall be called unclean. All the days in which the plague shall be upon him, being unclean, he shall be esteemed unclean. He shall dwell apart. His place of sojourn shall be without the camp. And if a garment has in it plague of leprosy, a garment of wool or a garment of flax, either in the warp or in the woof, or in the linen or in the woolen spreads, or in a skin or in a workmanship of skin, and the plague be greenish or reddish in the skin or in the garment, either in the warp or the woof, or in any utensil of skin, it is a plague of leprosy, and he shall show it to the priest. And the priest shall look upon the plague, and the priest shall set apart that which has the plague 7 days. And the priest shall look upon the plague on the 7th day, and if the plague be spread in the garment, either in the warp or in the woof, or in the skin, or in whatsoever things skins may be used in their workmanship, the plague is a confirmed leprosy, it is unclean. He shall burn the garment, either the warp or woof, in the woolen garments, or in flaxen, or in any utensil of skin in which there may be the plague, because it is confirmed leprosy, it shall be burnt with fire. And if the priest should see and the plague be not spread in the garments, either in the warp, in the woof, or in any utensil of skin, then the priest shall give directions, and one shall wash that on which there may have been the plague, and the priest shall set it aside a second time for 7 days. And the priest shall look upon it after the plague has been washed, and if this, even the plague, has not changed its appearance, and the plague does not spread, it is unclean. It shall be burnt with fire. It is fixed in the garment, in the warp, or in the woof. And if the priest should look, and the spot be dark after it has been washed, he shall tear it off from the garment, either from the warp or from the woof, or from the skin. And if it should appear in the garment, either in the warp or the woof, or in any article of the skin, it is a leprosy bursting forth, that wherein is the plague shall be burnt with fire. And the garment or the warp or the woof or any article of skin shall be washed, and the plague depart from it. So also be washed again, and shall be clean. This is the law of the plague of leprosy, of a woolen or linen garment, either of the warp or the woof, or any leather article, to pronounce it clean or unclean. Okay, so that's the end of our Leviticus portion there. Pretty much self-explanatory. So now it's going from like leprosy into what is it called, Mom? Where mildew. Yes, the green stuff, that would be mildew. So now it's going from like leprosy to mildew, the leprosy of physical human skin, to a mildew type of leprosy that would spread through clothing or any skinned garment that the chapter talks about. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
No, never mind.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because I know it's confusing. It goes from one chapter to the next. You got the white spots of leprosy, and then it goes to like something dealing with articles of skin and green and reddish discoloration of clothing and all that. So yeah, that's what we call modern day mildew, just FYI for anyone curious. So anyway, so we're going to be, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I would say that if it's definitely a little bit more than just mildew, because mildew is just like black in clothing. So the fact that it's got more than just black, definitely more than just mildew.
Mm-hmm. The reason I said mildew is because if you ever notice, like with the walls, we haven't gotten to that chapter yet. The next chapter deals with mildew in the house, where the green appears and all that. That like in our, I'm saying in our modern day, it's called mildew. I'm not saying that's the correct biblical term. I'm saying in modern day, they would call it that, like where you got like the green spots, the reddish spots in the walls, I'm not saying it's the correct terminology. I'm just saying that that's what the secular world would call it, where you got like greenish discoloration spreading and all that. It probably is more than just mildew, but that's what they call it. I think my mom's even allergic to it. We had a situation in our apartment a couple of years ago where our what was it, Mom? The wall of our shower started having that.
Yeah.
And it was like bad. It was like my mom started. There's a more correct term for the mildew. What is it called, Mom? Where people are allergic to it. It's
what, black mold?
No, it's not black. It's more like a greenish, like a light green discoloration in the walls. And
black mold isn't necessarily black.
Okay. I think mold is what my mom's actually allergic to, because it started
mold, right?
It started getting a discoloration like the color of mold, and then it started she started like coughing, sneezing. We had to call like the landlord and all that, because she gets allergic to it.
And they wouldn't do anything about it, so I was forced to find somebody to help me so I could get rid of it.
So yeah, I would say that's what reminded me of the next chapter. I started reading ahead this week, but next week we're going to deal with the leprosy of or whatever the correct term is, the disease of the plague of where the leprosy gets into the walls of your homes, and what the protocol was in Torah with the Levites, and how they had to deal with that, and sometimes even break down the whole wall and all that, and put a whole new wall in and all that. And, quarantining's involved and all that. So we're going to deal with that, Yahuwah willing, next week in the next chapter. So, but yeah, it's definitely, I would agree with Brother Joshua. It's a lot more serious than what we would call today mildew. It's actual plague, as Yahuwah describes it. It's a plague of leprosy. Depending on your translation, I think it would say leprosy in most translations. So yeah, it's a very big serious deal. So let me see here. I'm trying to think, where are we going next? I think we're going to the Prophet's portion next, but let me just double check. I don't have my Kindle in front of me right now to see the documents, so let me just backtrack very quickly before we do another recording. Let's see here. Backtrack. Okay. I think I might have to go on Messenger to look at the so I know I shared a screenshot of our document about a week or so ago, so I should be able to figure it out. I know we're going to I believe it's Ezekiel, but I just want to remember the right chapter. I think it's 45 to 46, if I recollect correctly. It's so we're going to be starting that. Yeah, here we go. So, all right, wow, that is a small picture. I really don't like how the Opera taskbar does that. I try to click on the screenshot, and the screenshot's like minimized, where you can barely even see it. This is the only thing about the taskbar for it that I don't like. Let me see here. I'll try to get the full size picture here so I can figure out where we're at. I just want to double check before we do that. Let's see here. Yeah. And I'm sorry, everyone, if I got notifications from you from Facebook. Sorry, I'm not responding, but I've been very busy lately. I haven't been on Facebook much, to be honest. So I've been busy the past 3 or 4 days. All right. I'm trying to get this to work here, but there's stupid Messenger is acting up here. Come on, man. Okay. Where the heck? All right, I'm going to assume that we're at Exodus 45 to 46. If I'm wrong, please correct me, guys. Stupid Messenger is not working right now for me to look at the picture.
I don't think we have an Exodus portion.
Oh, my bad. Ezekiel. I meant to say my bad. My fault. Yeah, so Ezekiel 45 to 46. Since I know you're already up to there, Mom, you wanna do that for us since you're already there? All right. Okay. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay. When you allot the land as an inheritance, you are to present to Yahuwah a portion of the land as a sacred district, 25,000 cubits long and 20,000 cubits wide. The entire area will be set apart. Of this, a section 500 cubits square is to be for the sanctuary, with 50 cubits around it for open land. In the sacred district, measure off a section 25,000 cubits long and 10,000 cubits wide. In it will be the sanctuary, the most set apart place. It will be the sacred portion of the land for the priests who minister in the sanctuary and who draw near to minister before Yahuwah. It will be a place for their houses as well as a set apart place for the sanctuary. An area 25,000 cubits long and 10,000 cubits wide will belong to the Levites who serve in the temple as their possession for towns to live in. You are to give the city as its property an area 5,000 cubits wide and 25,000 cubits long. Adjoining the sacred portion, it will be the whole house of Yashrael. This will have the land bordering each side of the area formed by the sacred district and the property of the city. It will extend westward from the west side and eastward from the east side, running lengthwise from the western to the eastern border, parallel to one of the tribal portions. This land will be his possession in Yashrael, and my princes will no longer oppress my people, but will allow the house of Yashrael to possess the land according to their tribes. This is what Sovereign Yahuwah says. You have gone far enough, O princes of Yashrael. Give up your violence and oppression and do what is just and right. Stop dispossessing my people, declares Sovereign Yahuwah. You are to use accurate scales, an accurate ephah, and an inaccurate and an accurate bath. The ephah and the bath are to be the same size, the bath containing a tenth of a homer, and the ephah a tenth of a homer. The homer is to be standard measure for both. The shekel is to consist of 20 gerahs, 20 shekels plus 25 shekels plus 15 shekels equal 1 minna. This is the special gift you are to offer, a sixth of an ephah for each homer of wheat, and a sixth of an ephah from each homer of barley. The prescribed portion of oil measured by the bath is a tenth of a bath from each core, which consists of 10 baths or 1 homer, for 10 baths are equivalent to a homer. Also, 1 sheep is to be taken from every flock of 200 from the well-watered pastures of Yashrael. These will be used for the grain offerings, burnt offerings, and fellowship offerings to make atonement for the people, declares Sovereign Yahuwah. All the people of the land will participate in this special gift for the use of the prince in Yashrael. It will be the duty of the prince to provide the burnt offerings, grain offerings, and drink offerings at the festivals, the new moons, and the Shabbats, at all the appointed feasts of the house of Yashrael. He will provide the sin offerings, grain offerings, burnt offerings, and fellowship offerings to make atonement for the house of Yashrael. This is what Sovereign Yahuwah says. In the first month, on the first day, you are to take a young bull without defect and purify the sanctuary. The priest is to take some of the blood of the sin offering and put it on the doorposts of the temple, on the 4 corners of the upper ledge of the altar, and on the gateposts of the inner court. You are to do the same on the 7th day of the month for anyone who sins unintentionally or through ignorance, so you are to make atonement for the temple. In the first month, on the 14th day, you are to observe the Passover, a feast lasting 7 days, during which you shall eat bread made without yeast. On that day, the prince is to provide a bull as a sin offering for himself and for all the people of the land. Every day during the 7 days of the feast, he is to provide 7 bulls and 7 rams without defect as a burnt offering to Yahuwah, and a male goat for a sin offering. He is to provide as a grain offering an ephah for each bull and an ephah for each ram, along with a hin of oil for each ephah. During the 7 days of the feast, which begins on the 7th month of the 15th day, he is to make the same provision for sin offerings, burnt offerings, grain offerings, and oil. Chapter 46. This is what Sovereign Yahuwah says. The gate of the inner court facing east is to be shut on the 6 working days, but on the Shabbat day and on the day of the new moon, it is to be opened. The prince is to enter from the outside through the portico of the gateway and stand by the gatepost. The priests are to sacrifice his burnt offering and his fellowship offerings. He is to worship at the threshold of the gateway and then go out, but the gate will not be shut until evening. On the Shabbats, the new moons, and the people of the land are to worship in the presence of Yahuwah at the entrance to that gate. The burnt offering the prince to Yahuwah on the Shabbat day is to be 6 male lambs and a ram, all without defect. The grain offering given with the ram is to be an ephah, and the grain offering with the lambs is to be as much as he pleases, along with a hin of oil for each ephah. On the day of the new moon, he is to offer a young bull, 6 lambs, and a ram, all without defect. He is to provide as a grain offering 1 ephah with the bull, 1 ephah with the ram, and with the lambs as much as he wants to give, along with a hin of oil with each ephah. When the prince enters, he is to go in through the portico of the gateway, and he is to come out the same way. When the people of the land come before Yahuwah at the appointed feasts, whoever enters by the north gate to worship is to go out the south gate, and whoever enters by the south gate is to go out through the north gate. No one is to return through the gate by which he entered, but each is to go out the opposite gate. The prince is to be among them, going in when they go in and going out when they go out. At the festivals and the appointed feasts, the grain offering is to be an ephah with a bull, an ephah with a ram, and with the lambs as much as one pleases, along with a hin of oil for each ephah. When the prince provides a freewill offering to Yahuwah, whether a burnt offering or fellowship offerings, the gate facing east is to be open for him. He shall offer his burnt offering or his fellowship offerings as he does on the Shabbat day. Then he shall go out, and after he has gone out, the gate will be shut. Every day you are to provide a year-old lamb without defect for a burnt offering to Yahuwah. Morning by morning you shall provide it. You are also to provide with it morning by morning a grain offering consisting of 1/6 of an ephah with 1/3 of a hin of oil to moisten the flour. The presenting of this grain offering to Yahuwah is a lasting ordinance. So the lamb and the grain offering and the oil shall be provided morning by morning for a regular burnt offering. This is what Sovereign Yahuwah says. If the prince makes a gift from his inheritance by one of his sons, it will also belong to his descendants. It is to be their property by inheritance. If, however, he makes a gift from his inheritance to one of his servants, the servant may keep it until the year of freedom. Then it will be revert to the prince. His inheritance belongs to his sons only. It is theirs. The prince must not take any of the inheritance of the people, driving them off their property. He is to give his sons their inheritance out of his own property, so that none of my people will be separated from his property. Then the man brought me through the entrance of the at the side of the gate to the sacred rooms facing north, which belonged to the priests, and showed me a place at the western end. He said to me, "This is the place where the priests will cook the guilt offering and the sin offering and bake the grain offering, to avoid bringing them into the outer court and consecrating the people." He then brought me to the outer court and led me around to its four corners, and I saw in each corner another court. In the four corners of the outer court were enclosed courts, 40 cubits long and 30 cubits wide. Each of the courts in the four corners was the same size. Around the inside of each of the four courts was a ledge of stone, with places for fire built all around under the ledge. He said to me, "These are the kitchens where those who minister at the temple will cook the sacrifices of the people."
Yeah, very interesting couple of chapters. So you start seeing Yahuwah's plan basically in the millennium. This is a whole outline. I know a lot of Jewish people read these chapters and they get this preconceived bias that this was somehow they get the idea like this is Herod's temple. I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see that. So I don't see how you could get that from the dimensions of this temple when you read, I think it's chapters 44 all the way to 46. There's no way you could get that understanding if you're just reading it the way it reads. Herod's temple did not look like that. So anyway, but yeah, there is a future temple that is going to be built. This obviously was not for Ezekiel's time. This is not talking about the rebuilding of Ezra's temple. I know a lot of people will sometimes say that too. No, this is a future temple that has not been built up into this time today as we're speaking. This has not been built yet. I'm of that firm belief that this is a specific millennial reign temple that Yahuwah is showing to him in a vision that has not been built yet. So go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
I'm not sure what it read in your mom's version, but it even in that version and even in the Septuagint, it seems to read wrongly every time from what I've seen, where it's usually translated peace offerings in the Septuagint. That word for peace is not peace. The word is pointing to salvation. So deliverance offering or salvation offering should be what it reads. Ezekiel 46:12, I believe. Let me see.
Yeah, I could see how they would put their own opinion into that terminology, especially those of us that believe in the Brit Hadashah. Yahusha gives us salvation, and Yahusha was a chastisement of our peace. I can see how they're kind of what is the word I'm looking for? They're improvising rather than translating it directly as a deliverance offering or salvation offering. So yeah,
ABP is the only one that gets it right.
Yeah, the ABP is actually, for the most part, taking the direct Greek interpretation of it with what that word means. And so also another thing to note is not every Septuagint uses the same manuscript, just FYI. The ABP, from what I've researched, he uses I'm trying to remember his name, Charles Vanderpool. He uses multiple manuscript families for his translation. That's why it's different than the Bretons or the Alexandrian, the major version that we know of today. Like most Greek Orthodox Bibles use the Alexandria Bible, whatever manuscript the Alexandria Bible would use, that would be like the Greek Orthodox Bible or the Bretons. Very, very few translators use the resources that Vanderpool used his translation. He's using like multiple manuscript families to get his renderings of certain verses. That's probably why he gets it correct. I think he's from his own claim. You can look it up on Wikipedia or other sources of his translation. He's using multiple different copies of the Septuagint, different manuscript families. So there's like at least 3 or 4 different main manuscript families you have in the Septuagint today. So that's part of the reason sometimes he has a better rendering in his English translation. From what I've go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Yeah, I can see with that. In this instance, however, LXX uses soterion as well, or deliverance. Greek word is soterion.
Yeah, so that's a little, I guess you would call a boo-boo by Sir Lancelot Brenton and others. I don't know how, like I said, other than they're putting Christian tradition in there and they're putting like a Christian allegory in there, if they're on purpose translating it as peace offering, I get the reasoning. Like, I understand, I get it. You know, he's the chastisement of our peace and all that, and he's our salvation. I get why they're doing that. But, you know, we need to be honest with what the text literally says. It says salvation offering. That's what they should translate from the Greek to the English. You know, to be honest with the text, if you're going to be a translator, you don't allegorize or paraphrase something, especially if, you know, already the Septuagint is a thought for thought manuscript. You don't need to paraphrase a paraphrase. That's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But anyway, so, you know, it could be a common mistake or it could be something just a translator bias, it seems there. But yeah, it should. So according to what Joshua just looked up in the Greek, the actual original Greek of the Septuagint, it should be salvation offering, deliverance offering. So either way, I can still see it pointing to Yahusha. So I don't know why they felt the need to improvise there. But anyway, so, but there's a lot of good stuff here. There's a lot of good stuff here. It shows the new moons. It shows even today we can't fully keep the new moons the way they're supposed to be kept, because they were given in a Levitical priesthood context. You know, obviously a lot of these commands were given to us to do literally in the land. A lot of these commandments in the context of the commands, like worshiping at the gate of the temple, you can't do that today in a Melchizedek priesthood. So obviously there's certain things we can't physically do that are part of even the new moons. You know, when the millennial happens, obviously you could parallel Ezekiel 46 with Isaiah 66 and all that, and even the Hebraic Roots translator puts that here in his little notes here. Both Sabbaths and new moons are observed during this time, Isaiah 66:23. So obviously, even the Hebraic Roots translator understands this is a millennial context. This is not a right now context, obviously, because they're going to Jerusalem to keep the new moons and Sabbaths. We're not staying where we are to keep the new moons and Sabbaths. So obviously, this is a future millennial context. Especially when you look at the Septuagint of Isaiah 66:23, it says to worship him at Jerusalem. It doesn't just say to worship him. So again, it's a millennial context of the temple that's being talked about. So anyway, so just thought I would mention that. I found it interesting. There's a parallel between the prince and Yahusha. Yahusha, I truly believe, is the prince that's being talked about in Ezekiel 46. When you start realizing it's all millennial future context of this new temple, it makes a lot of sense that the Levites are serving him. Makes perfect sense. So anyway, just thought I'd put my 2 cents in with that. So hopefully that helps you understand what's going on with those chapters. But there's a lot of tube stuff in these 2 chapters that my mom just read. There's a lot of important stuff. Specific ways they're supposed to exit the gateway to the temple and enter. So whoever's exiting has to go on one side of the gate, you know, and those that are entering go on the other side and vice versa. So Yahuwah is an Elohim of order. So that's a thing you could spiritualizely get from what my mom just read is Yahuwah is an Elohim of order. He's not an Elohim of chaos. Okay, he's got everything ordered literally for a reason. But that's a good thing to note from the Greek. Every time the Septuagint says peace, it's supposed to be salvation offering. That's something good to look at, and I'll be testing that in my future studies as we're going through the Torah, because a lot of times you'll see the phrase peace offering there in the Septuagint. So I'll be looking to make sure when it's translated as peace that it should be peace rather than deliverance, because I'm pretty sure there are peace offerings, obviously, in the text. It's just that in this case it should not be peace offering. So I'm going to be more tedious with my studies and looking into the Greek and making sure it says what it should be saying. Go ahead, Brother Joshua.
Perhaps there is peace offerings. However, every single time that I've seen peace offering throughout Leviticus, it's always Soterion.
Okay. Because I know in the Masoretic, they definitely call it peace offerings, and it's peace offerings in the Hebrew. I've definitely seen it. There's definitely a distinction between a deliverance offering and a peace offering. They're not the same thing. There's definitely a distinction. So maybe in the Greek, it's hard to make that distinction, but I know in other manuscripts, there's definitely a way to make a distinction between a burnt, whole burnt. So there's many different offerings in the Torah. You got burnt offerings, whole burnt offerings. According to the Septuagint, there's even a distinction between different burnt offerings. There's a whole burnt offering, and you have peace, and then Soterion would indicate there's also salvational offerings, trespass offerings. I mean, there's so many different offerings in the Torah. So I would be very shocked if peace offering is not a legitimate offering, because then that means they're mistranslating the Masoretic too, because they're multiple times, even in the other versions of the Old Testament, there's peace offerings being mentioned. So that definitely seems to be something something that's actually there. I would have to do more research into it to definitely change my opinion on that, because I definitely see it in other versions, maybe not in the Septuagint, but there's other versions that mention it as its own offering. So I don't know, that would be something to do a future study on and to look more deeper into. So let me see here. I think we just did the prophets portion. Let me definitely stop. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up. Go ahead, and then we'll do.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I don't have a problem. Definitely something to look into, but I don't have a problem thinking that the Masoretes wrote it wrong. That's not a problem in my opinion.
Yeah,
they mistranslate everything else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I just find it hard to believe there's not something called a peace offering when messianically even Yahushua is tied to that. That he was the chastisement of our peace. He made peace. There's multiple messianic connections to the fact that he was offered for sins and he's making peace between us and Abba. There seems to be a legitimate scriptural idea of a peace offering. So it might not be literally, like I said, in our modern copies of the Septuagint today, it might not be there, but it's there. It's definitely hinted at in scripture in general that there's something known as a peace offering. From what I've studied. So I would really need concrete evidence to show that that's not the case, that there's no such thing as a peace offering that was added in by the Masoretes, because that definitely would be something crazy to come to realization of, because it's mentioned like constantly everywhere, not just in the Masoretic text, but in other versions. That would be something I definitely want to look more into, in my opinion. That's something I want to look more into before I form an opinion either way. I definitely see it, though, in messianic connections. He is connected to this type of making peace, being an offering of peace. It seems like definitely in our translations, at least, the lamb is a type of peace offering and all that. And so, yeah, I definitely want to look more into that and definitely more into the word soterion and find out why it only means deliverance and all that. So I definitely want to look into that myself, because I'll be honest, I haven't looked into it. So I haven't really looked into the word soterion in any concordance yet. So I definitely want to look into that myself. But it's very possible what Brother Joshua was saying is true, and that I could be wrong, that maybe peace offering was something they made up. It's very possible. So, but anyway, so let me see here. I think we're already going to be at the New Testament portion. I do want to get a new reader. It's me and my mom already read. I do want to get a new reader, see if there's any volunteers for our Luke portion here. Also, I want to get a new recording going here because this recording is probably a little lengthy already. So let me just start a new live and then we can get going here. So please stay tuned, everyone. I hope you've been enjoying this study so far. We'll be back with the